I'll be really brief. Representative Larry Hall from Durham County, location where one of the clinics was ordered to cease operations until they came up to standard regarding a procedure in the handling of blood there. But again, that shows that the system does work, that the safeguards are in place, that the inspections are being done, and that those who are providing services and operating these clinics are abiding by the regulations when they're asked to comply. You wonder why I'm the second man to speak, but certainly we have a role in this too. We know that women know what they're doing with their bodies. We know they can make the responsible choice, and we should be supportive of that they have the same rights and privileges and opportunities that men have in making decisions about their bodies. And so we know why we're here, to support all of you. So I'm glad to see that North Carolinians and women from all over the state have said they will not give up their right to safe health care. And let's face it, these clinics that we're talking about don't just provide abortion services. They provide health care screening, they provide family planning services, they provide much of what is needed by women in North Carolina. And by shutting down these clinics, we will shut down opportunities for our next generations. And for me personally, as I said, it is personal for me. It is personal for folks to make irresponsible policies and hide at night and then flee during the day so that we can't confront them and force them to engage in a dialogue. And so I thank you for being here. I thank all of the members who have come out today to speak to this issue and to fight for this issue and to fight for women in North Carolina. Again, this will have a devastating effect on women in North Carolina and their access to health care. The governor has said there should be no restriction on women's health care. And if there is any way that this bill affects women's access to health care, it should be stopped. And clearly, it can't be fixed like it is. It's not a rush that can be done on this bill to make it work and not infringe on women's access to health care. So again, I thank you for standing up, all of the women in the legislature, all of you who are from Planned Parenthood, all of you that believe that North Carolina's best days will be served by having women who have choice and exercise the responsibility over their futures. Thank you, Representative.
We have a few minutes for questions, about 4 minutes, maybe 3 minutes for questions. But first I want to introduce some of our partners who have been very instrumental in making this possible and all that they do with their expertise. Suzanne Buckley, Pro-Choice Foundation. Sarah Paxton, ACLU. Melissa Reed with the Planned Parenthood. And I got all of my legislative friends and experts with me, so let the questions begin. No questions? Yes. Press questions.
So it seems that Secretary Bosch and a couple of other speakers this morning implied that this bill could turn into a study bill. Would you folks with the Democratic caucus support that?
If it's going to make a difference for safety of women, but we don't really see it as something that's going to make women safer. We see it as a political move to stop abortions and close down clinics in North Carolina. So if they truly want to make a difference, they would put additional staff in place at the Department of Health and Human Services. They only have 10 to do the job of over 100 different facilities. Then we need to do that, but as a last result, we might accept the study bill. Okay. Any other comments? Yes, Paige.
I certainly can't speak for the representatives in terms of what they would support, but I will say that it's important to realize that House Bill 695, not only does it include TRAP legislation, targeted regulations of abortion providers, but it also it includes all of the legislation. It's a wish list for those who oppose women making personal pregnancy decisions. And the legislation that's inside of this bill was not vetted in the Senate. There was no opportunity to discuss some of the legislation that was never heard in the Senate, and not just the new legislation that was not heard before crossover, but other legislation, other components in there I will say that in the media, as soon as the sneak attack happened, in the media, proponents of this bill were saying this was a Christmas present in July for those who oppose a woman being able to make deeply personal pregnancy decisions. So I think we understand that the intent is not just the TRAP legislation to shut down abortion providers, but to pass in one omnibus bill every kind of abortion restriction that proponents or anti-women's health proponents were pushing this year.
Any other questions? Yes.
I had a question for Paige Johnson, if that's okay.
Yes, Paige Johnson, question?
You had said that you would work with lawmakers to on the bill. Could you expand on that?
Well, I'd love to expand on that, and I'd love to meet with them. I think that if they're going to take up legislation which has been passed in other states, and what we know is that legislation similar to the TRAP components, the targeted regulations of abortion providers, similar legislation in other states when introduced has shut down abortion providers. If their goal, as Representative Samuelson said, is not to shut down providers of safe and legal abortion, but rather to make the procedure safer and make it safer for women, then why not involve the providers of this health care? Let's be honest, if they were discussing any other kind of health care, they would have stakeholders around the table. We're not talking about regulating ourselves. We are very open to the regulation that exists, the laws that exist. We are very open to that. But when legislators are pushing legislation, typically, if they are genuinely interested in understanding the implications and what goes and the consequences, then they bring in stakeholders. Not a single women's health expert was allowed to testify about House Bill 695 before they shoved it through on a late afternoon and in the evening. And now it's not eligible for amendments. So no one was allowed to testify. So what we would welcome is an opportunity to sit around the table as stakeholders and I would say as an organization more committed to women's safety and health than any other organization in this country.
Very good. Yes.
Yeah, could you help explain why all these anti-abortion bills are happening across the country at once in Texas, Ohio, Virginia?
I think it's a political agenda, and it's by the majority party, particularly the Republican Party, and it's a concerted effort, and they're doing it across the state. It's not by accident. Anybody else? Well, across the country, I'm sorry. Anybody else want to make comments on that?
Sure. I will just say we don't, Suzanne from Mayor Alpert, North Carolina, we don't know why they're doing it, but we know what they're not doing, which is not expanding Medicaid, not working to keep people on unemployment benefits, not lifting up real legislation that would help, like Representative Cunningham said, to solve pay equity issues. So we can look at what they're not doing and infer a lot from that.
Thank you. And the press conference is over. Sorry.